It's 7:30, so why don't we get I think we have everybody. Tom's here, Ed's here, Marina's here. Yeah, all right, so why don't we get things started? Good evening, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge. It's Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. Time now is 7:30 p.m. We begin by reading the official statement. The meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic and is in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this meeting was published in the Bergen Record on January 20, 2021, and the Ridgewood News on January 22nd, 2021, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on the borough's website. The notice included the dial-in and login information necessary for public participation and access to this meeting remotely. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included the dial-in and login information. During the public comment period of this meeting, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand button on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by the last 4 digits of your telephone number. You may mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone keypad. You must state your name and address prior to making a public comment. Members of the public were permitted to submit written comments prior to the meeting via mail or email, which will be read during the public comment period. Marina, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Mayor? Oh, I think he's on mute.
I apologize. Present.
Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Ms. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Grasso?
Here.
Mr. Cray?
Here.
Mr. Arkelian?
Here.
Councilman Kinigo?
Here.
Mr. Gibbons?
Mr.
He's
Gibbons.
absent.
Mr. Gibbons is excused this evening.
Okay. Mr. Pfeffer? I don't see him either. Absent for now. And Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Okay.
All right. Just one housekeeping item before we get started. And Ms. Kaufman, I don't know if there's anybody in the audience at this point, but if there is anyone that is here to for either the Bergen County Historical Society application or the Perkins subdivision application, both of those agenda items have been carried to the June 23rd meeting. So they will not be part of the discussion this evening. So no need to stick around if you otherwise don't want to. That said, we will continue on. We have 2 minutes for approval this evening. We have the minutes for the May 12, 2021 meeting. Open the floor to any comments, questions on the May 12th minutes.
Chairman, you need a motion?
There being no comments, yes, if you would, please.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of the 12th.
Okay, may I have a second, please?
Second?
Okay, so we have Mr. Merman and Ms. Boland. Marina, can you call?
Yes. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Mr. Caslin was absent at that meeting. Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso and Mr. Cray were also absent at that meeting. Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
Councilman Kinigo?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
All right, yes.
And just for the record, Mr. Pfeffer is in attendance tonight. Mr. Esposito?
Here.
And okay, so the motion to approve the May 12th minutes is approved.
Thank you. The next item up are the minutes for the now famous May 26th meeting where we were cut short by the Zoom outage. Open the floor to any comments on the draft minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the minutes.
Yes, Mr. Merman.
Actually, okay, I have an amendment and a comment. The amendment is to the Bergen County Historical Society portion. And if you go down to the 18th row, what starts not the borough of River Ridge, a call was put in. At the end of that sentence, I would like to insert another sentence. And I propose that sentence read, Mr. Barrett strongly suggested introducing and prevailing in legal action should the board not approve this application. Which he did, which you might recall was a tirade. That's my comment on that part.
Okay. Marina, any issue including that statement?
Could you just repeat what the statement you wanted to include was?
Okay, I'll read it again. Mr. Barrett strongly suggested introducing and prevailing in legal action should the board not approve this application.
My only comment is that it was for the memorialization, not approving the application. I think
Well-
that's what Mr. Barrett was raising the concern with. If,
Okay, then strike out the words of this application.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's, that's.
Well, then
okay.
should I put in resolution in place of application?
If that is used throughout, yes, so,
Okay.
yeah, we could amend that, yep.
that's my only comment on that section.
Okay. Any other comments on that section before we move on? Okay. Mr. Merman, do you have anything?
My other comment, and it's on the Walker one, and that's where we really got cut off.
Right.
When we get to the Walker application later, I'm gonna have that motion restated in a whole. So this one is right now is really incomplete. And it kind of says that when it says the meeting was abruptly ended. So I don't know if we've got to say anything or what, but that's where that stands.
Yeah,
So,
so could Lisa also just add that the Walker application, or no vote was taken on the Walker application?
Yeah, I'd like something in the record to note that, because in
I
particular,
could do that.
the
Okay.
last sentence is a little bit misleading, because it gives some sort of, potentially gives the illusion that there was some sort of approval.
right.
There's also a typo in the fourth line on that last page. Mr. Motion should be Mr. Merman. Any other comments or questions on the minutes?
I have no other, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Mr. Arkellyan and Mr. Merman?
hey, we're moving right along here.
Marina?
And I'll do the vote. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Ms. Boland was absent at that meeting.
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes,
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Cray was absent at that meeting. Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
Councilman Kinigo? Oh, I don't know if I could hear him.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And then Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda, as we said at the outset, both the Bergen County Historical Society and the Perkins subdivision applications that we carried to the June 23rd meeting. So we will proceed now with our old business, which is the Walker application, Chantel, 164 Webb Avenue, Block 401, Lot 15. I am going to turn this over to Vice Chairman Merman, since I was not present at the initial hearing, and I will ask him to continue the application.
Okay. Ms. Kaufman, do we have a representative from the Walker family on?
Yes, she's right
We
here.
do. Okay. So just to quickly summarize where we were, after all our discussions and everything, we were in the, at the point where we were making a motion and pulling all the pieces together when we got some jumble from the Zoom and finally got cut off. So I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna call on Mr. Arakelian to make a fresh motion, and we'll process that.
Thank you,
I'm sorry, could we just have an update from Mrs. Walker to see if there's anything in addition, since I know there was a question about the seepage pit at the last meeting, and I wanted to know if there was an update on that before you renew the motion, if that's okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's where I got cut off on the last meeting. It was a real cliffhanger. So I am glad that I had the break, honestly, for my husband and I to be able to discuss the seepage pit. And I would actually like to propose an alternative to the seepage pit on our property, which would include the removal of our concrete walkway between the front porch and the side porch, and removing 40 square feet from our side porch as well. Taking those two items out would reduce our improved lot coverage to 40.4%.
Okay, so you're introducing something new. So let's get some discussion from the board to see how they feel. I thought we were already beyond that point. I kind of, from experience, note that when something like that is removed sometime down the road, it reappears. And I think that the seepage, personally, that's a seepage pit, is a more positive corrective action. Anybody on the board want to chime in regarding this proposal?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, yeah, I mean, we're introducing something new here. I don't know, Ms. Stinley, where we go with that, because with making fundamental changes from what was discussed at the last meeting, I don't know if there would have to be some sort of renotice, or because now the people that were on for that meeting aren't on for this meeting, assuming that it was already into the memorialization portion of the meeting. So I'd
Well,
like
the board never took a vote on the motion, so it's just a pending motion that's out there that there was no vote on. So the applicant, since we had the technical difficulties and the board couldn't make didn't make a decision at the last meeting. I think the board can consider what Mrs. Walker is proposing now. The outstanding motion would then just have to be changed to reflect that, or it would have to be rescinded.
All right, so with that said, we're legally okay to discuss this, so we can move forward on that. And I appreciate you guys looking at what you could do here. I will tell you that in the past, it has always been anything above the 35 that is part of the borough code. We always require the borough engineer to weigh in on what kind, if a pit needs to be installed or not. So by taking that, whatever you're taking off your of what was discussed from the last meeting, probably won't cancel out the fact that the borough engineer may still require you to put a seepage pit in. So it was, I don't think there was ever a question of you having to put a pit in with as much as you've done. It was a question of how big the pit would be. And the engineer would maybe have you put a little bit of a bigger seepage pit in because of the additional 1.7 that the board typically approves for. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. That's not how I understood it when I came into the last meeting. This was what I was prepared to present in the last meeting as well, but I do understand how you're explaining it.
Tom, do you want to weigh in on what I'm discussing? Am I right, wrong, indifferent?
Based on what I remember from the last meeting, I think that was what was proposed, was that the seepage pit would be installed to offset the difference of the percentage above, I believe it was above the 35%, or perhaps the difference above 40%, whatever the board may recall. I thought it was from the 35%.
My recall is, and generally speaking, we do it with every applicant that's over 35%.
Right.
We have the borough engineer, make or decide what needs to be done there to remediate the additional water.
Right.
So going from 41.7% to 40% is not going to possibly eliminate the need for a seepage pit. So
right.
It may just alleviate having to go from a 6-gallon to a 5-gallon. But I think that the seepage pit is probably going to be required no matter what, because you're over to 35%. Is that, Tom? You agree?
I think in almost every case where there's an improved lot coverage variance granted, that usually is the case, that we rely on the engineer to determine whether or not a seepage pit is necessary. And I think more often than not, that is the case. The one other factor here, and it's an issue that I talked to Rob about, is that it looks like the surface may allow for some level of permeability. That it's constructed of sort of a gravel layer with a permeable tile. I don't know if that factors into this, but to your point, Mr. Arakalian, we have required the seepage pit for just about every single applicant above 35%.
So with that said, Ms. Walker, I don't know if you want to just keep to the original thing and roll the dice and see where we go with it.
The original thing being the seepage.
That way you're not taking your front walk out, you're not taking you're leaving the property the way it is, and you're just gonna have to deal with the pit, whether it's 5 gallons or 7 gallons or whatever the engineer tells you.
And I will get that information from the engineer on the size. The borough engineer would provide that. Right, that's fine.
Tom, that's correct, right?
He'll give the specifications and the extent and the methodology. I think there are different types of, there are different ways to do it, let's say, and different types of structures to be installed. So yeah, he'd be able to address that.
Okay, I understand.
So I imagine that your architect will work with Mr. Costa on the criteria and so forth. Okay. Any other comments from any other members? Not hearing any. Mr. Arakalian,
I am prepared to make a motion.
thank you.
On the, and I'm sorry you had to wait 2 weeks.
Talk
So,
fast.
I have your block and lot number here. Let me just pull it up. Okay, so on the application of Walker, Brent and Chantel, 164 Webb Avenue, block 401, lot 15 of the proposed extension of the lot coverage, I would make a motion that we accept and approve this application based on it. I believe it's 41.7% lot coverage with the two premises that they will accept the recommendation of the borough engineer on water management and the possibility of a seepage pit, whatever he decides. And two, that if this is ever, if the impervious coverage is ever removed and has to be, and the homeowner wants to replace it, they would have to come back before the board for that additional coverage or to replicate that coverage. And that's my motion.
Okay, can I amend that slightly?
Sure.
Okay, that the Walker's design professional submit calculations to Mr. Costa, the borough engineer, and that the borough engineer set the criteria, that the borough engineer inspect the installation before it's covered up and issue a letter of acceptance, and that the project certificate of occupancy be contingent upon the borough engineer's acceptance. That's
I'm fine with that, with those additions to my motion. Marina, are you okay with that?
I just want to confirm that Mrs. Walker understands those conditions. So if the borough engineer reviews the application and recommends that you install a seepage pit or do any sort of water mitigation, that you'll have to follow those recommendations as a condition of approval before this board. That makes sense to you? And is that acceptable?
You mean I would have to come back before this board, or
No.
that would be the requirement? Yes, I do understand if I were to do the construction.
Okay.
And further, that the applicant's architect would submit the calculations to Mr. Costa for his approval, and Mr. Costa will inspect the installation before it's covered up and issue a letter of acceptance, and that the certificate of occupancy be contingent upon his letter of acceptance. I'm just repeating what I originally had. Yeah, okay.
Yep, I think that is a standard in all of our resolutions. Yeah.
So I guess we need a second if there's no other discussion.
Second.
Hi, Councilman.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, so I guess we can have a roll call then?
Okay, and I just want to confirm, there were 4 board members who weren't present at all of the hearings on this application. So unless they watched the recordings, they cannot vote on the application. And those board members are Mr. Caslin, Ms. Boland, Mr. Grasso, and Mr. Cray. So unless they can provide, or unless they have watched the recordings, they won't be able to vote tonight.
How many sessions were there for this application?
There was one on May 12th and one on May 26th.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just go with that you did not watch all of the recordings, and then I'll take the vote for the remainder of the board members that are here. Okay. So Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Councilman Kaniga,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Sorry for the delay, Mrs. Walker.
Technology is great when it works, but otherwise not so much. No problem.
The boys will be happy. The court will remain.
All the best,
Thank you.
Mrs. Walker.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Too.
Okay, Mr. Castellan, I return the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. With that being well, we have no new business. Any further, we're going to take up the discussions regarding our return to, or possible return to in-person hearings. We'll do that in a closed session. So let's hold that for the moment, but any other new business? And Ms. Kaufman, we have no one in the audience, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You want to have a motion to go into closed session, Chris?
I'd like a motion to go into closed session.
So I'll make that motion to go to closed session.
Thank you, sir.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay.
So,
Comment is that could we go into a breakout room? So then if a member of the public does show up, then they won't be in the closed session.
But can I just ask a question, Chris? Why do we have to do this in closed session? There's nothing.
I just figure it's just easier, just people can talk freely if they want to. It's just
Okay.
a better forum, I think, for just, until, what I don't want to have happen is somebody says something, and if it's open to the public, then automatically they think it's gospel, verse, and truth. And so.
Okay, I get it.
I think the real answer is you want to see yourself on television tomorrow.
if we want to make this easier, since I don't have a closed session set up, I can just stop the recording and just keep an eagle eye on the participant list and kick anyone out if they show up.
Okay.
that works.
Marina, the only question I would ask then is, aren't closed sessions supposed to be recorded for later release if they have to be?
Oh,
No,
No? Okay, all right, then I'm good.
okay. So can I stop it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are you prepared to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Mr. Arkelian, I would appreciate that.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
May I have a second, please?
well, I'll just do a quick roll call when we're from coming back in from the closed session.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'll second it.
All right, why would let Marina, why don't you go ahead and do the roll call?
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
Here.
Mr. Caslin,
Here.
Ms. Boland,
Here.
Mr. Merman,
Here,
Mr. Grasso,
Here.
Mr. Cray,
Here.
Mr. Arkelian,
Here.
Councilman Kenigo,
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Here.
and Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Okay, and we came back from a closed session at 8:18 p.m.
Okay,
And we have a motion to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Arkelian, and I believe the second was from Mr. Merman.
correct.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Any opposed, any abstain? And there being none.
Good night, everybody. Stay safe, everybody.
here,
Thanks for
Take
staying.
care.
Good night. Thank you all.
Bye.
Take care.
stay cool.